the supply chain. And I know that, Roman, you have this kind of thinking anyway. So, Roman, I want to ask you, so how's the ecosystem notion and the supply chain relevant to risk management?
Very good question. Thank you for that. So, in my opinion, as Melody already pointed out, is risk management is the top discipline. And secondary to that, we have things like digital sovereignty, because yes, I want to have the things I bought making work the way I like, and not any other people can interfere with my will in the cyberspace. The second is cybersecurity. We are reducing the risk of running out of business by raising our security invests. So now, like 3 years ago, Ms. von der Leyen, now our head of European Union, was at that point our Minister for Defense. She said that in her opinion, all the vehicles that we have for defense in sea, in air, and on land are nothing else like $1 million IoT devices. And they have a very, very long supply chain. And there is an entire ecosystem working on putting those $1 billion devices together. So how can you make sure that if cyber is key for those $1 billion devices to work properly, that cyber is working properly in those $1 million IoT devices? And this question we raised in one of our very strong alliances, discussed for the last 3 years, and we came to the point, the first management doctrine is you cannot manage what you can't measure. Then we figured out, well, if you want to measure something, you have to know it. So it is impossible to reduce risks if you don't know what is inside the box. So now that leads to take a car or a train, and you want to understand exactly which hardware and software components in the IT are built in. That means you want to understand each controller on each of those devices built in. And you want to understand each of the patch mechanisms used to enhance the capabilities of those CPUs inside it. So what does that mean? The entire supply chain must deliver all the pieces that are in and must explain how to patch. Now let's change to the B2C market. Assume you have a vacuum cleaning robot. What is there? It always has power. So now you have a student building in a camera, a microphone, and a wireless interface. Well, that's very easy. Now you deliver it because you say, well, the accu of the old thing may explode, use this one. And it will be used. So what you have is an Alexa that is steered by you. And now, what do we call that? Well, it's added values. In the speech of the backdoors, you are just adding values to a product. And if you add the product values, like in the car, you have a camera and you have the voice control, you may be able to have any cab in the world to be monitored. So the businessman sitting inside we've heard about some of the nations putting like microphones into the business class seats of their air. Yeah, we have heard that. But what does that mean if you want to opposite against it? Well, you have to take control. And taking control means you know exactly what is built in. So that's the story. What is the challenge for the ecosystems and for the supply chain? We have to know exactly what is in and how to patch that. Yeah. This is not an easy story, but we have to challenge it.
Thank you, Ramon. Yeah, I was just about to say, it seems like it's not an easy story. Can I stay with you, Ramon, for just another question, if that's okay? Because sure. That really intrigued me to ask, okay, now we know the challenge. It seems to be terribly complex. I think this picture of billion-dollar IoT devices is a little bit frightening, I have to admit, though I'm in cybersecurity, so I see a lot of bad stories. But this one, you know, that's even worse than the IoT fridge, right? That is normally discussed. So it is about visibility, it's about asset management, it's about being on top of patch management. I get that. It is terribly complex. What's the state of play today? So we know the challenge, but I want to ask you, Ramon, where are we today, right? Are we there yet?
We have many in the think tank thinking in the right way, and some even acting in the right way. So like Ischinger has told us, trust is the currency for diplomacy. The first thing what we have to do is we have to be very clear in our wording and in the granularity. So what do you expect to be trustworthiness when you buy a Bluetooth chip? There are no added values inside. So the Bluetooth chip doesn't have any backdoors and can talk to anybody which you don't know. This is a feature you expect from a trustworthy Bluetooth chip. So how do you get the trust in the delivery chain? How can you be sure? Well, you can say, well, if I have a liability of, let's say, $500 million for a piece that costs me $1, that's sufficient for me. And probably you will check whether the $500 million liability will be in effect. Because if that's the startup and there are two guys hanging around and just have like $10,000 on the bank account, it will not be helpful to have this liability. So what I'm trying to say is you have a fine granularity on the trust that you put in things. And yes, you can document that. And yes, if you have this entire supply chain, you can also build a trust chain. So you can have the attributes that you're interested in modulated in a trust chain. So what does that help? Assume you are very, very interested in availability. You will figure out that any invest in availability is opposite to invest in confidentiality. This is something that not everybody has from the first take. So take two firewalls. You have two ISPs. You get the firewall from the one vendor on the one side and from the other on the other side. What have you done? You have increased availability. Because if one of the firewalls gets down, the other works still. So now what I'm trying to tell is that not for each device, confidentiality is the most important thing. So now the chain of trust goes along with availability, for example, and you can kick out all the rest.
So you really have to deep dive a little bit into, and it's kind of device specific, and also the parts in the supply chain need to be managed, let's say individually and looked at individually, if I understand correctly, right?
That's all about management, yes.
Yes, thanks, Roman. That was, that was very interesting to see, and also this notion of trust. All of a sudden, I need to say, coming into risk management. Now, I'm a firm believer that trust is very important, and of course, I'm with the ambassador there that trust is very important. Trust is a currency. I say trust is gold, and this is also. Digital sovereignty is close to your heart. So, Ramon, if you want to take that one, that would be great.
Yeah. So we have to see that the method how cybersecurity is purchased is not best of the breed, but cheapest cost. So what we do is we reduce quality to reduce the price. That doesn't help communities, ecosystems to be built up, to be full scale. So we see that like every computer has antivirus on it. What we see is antivirus is a cheap and pressing market. So the vendors for antivirus will not cooperate. That's the result. If we press the price down, we don't have any expertise anymore. We have like 3-5 global players. So now when we look, Wintergerst has asked for cooperation. Cedric O has asked for tools to protect. And Helge Schmidt said, we need confidence and trust. And in my opinion, this does work together only if we accept that having a high knowledge needs to be fed by money. It doesn't help. Because those who have real high knowledge, they will be driven out of the market by those who sell fake security. And we have a lot of fake security. So we have to really challenge that problem on a political, on an alliance, on a consumer, and on a manufacturer side. And we can't get them together at the moment because €1 is spent only one time. It may be spent for a new SAP version. It may also be spent for any computer science investigation. But still, the fight for this €1 is dominant, is key against producing collective quality cooperation that gives us full-scale security from all of the vendors, all of the manufacturers. So I hope this statement is saying what I'm really trying to do for the last 30 years, bringing together communities with knowledge. And I see money is always opposite.